My observation has been that if there's a tight relationship and if one party is betrayed by the other in that manner, that it's almost always irreconcilable. It breaks it. I've helped people try to struggle through that, on both sides of it, the person who was betrayed and the person who did the betrayal. I've seen people grow up and not do it again, and this was in situations where their partner didn't know. And in a couple of those situations, it seemed to me that it might have even been a necessary learning experience for the person who did it. It helped them develop. That doesn't mean I'm justifying it, but life is complicated. But I think that society works better, all things considered, when you make a promise and you stick to it. And one of the things I learned from reading Jung, which I really liked, was, he believed that, and he had his affairs too, so you might think about it as somewhat hypocritical, but I think that people can make mistakes without having what they think necessarily be wrong. He said that there are things in a marriage that you can't have unless you're all in. And I believe that. And so if there's a back door open, to begin with, or a back door opens, then I think that there's something about the relationship that is lacking at least, and I think you pay a big price for that. So, it depends on whether you regard a marriage as a practical arrangement or a spiritual arrangement. Now, really, it's both, and both are important. But if it's a spiritual arrangement or a psychological arrangement above all, then I do think that you don't get the transformation without being all in. And if you violate it, then even if you can work it out with your partner, there's something that you will never get. If something happens 3 times that is causing emotional upset, anger, jealousy, disappointment, resentment, frustration, any of those things, anything that you don't want to experience and that you especially don't want to experience repeatedly, then you can call it out. And I would also say that when you call it out, you could say, look, we were at a party the other night and I felt as if you were paying too much intense attention to Dave. There was flirting going on there that made me uncomfortable. You don't say, well, you were flirting, stop doing it. You say, this is what it looked like to me and here was my response. And then you want to think, and maybe I'm a damn fool and blind and jealous and stupid and I'm misinterpreting, or maybe it was a harmless flirtation of the sort that people will engage in because it adds a little bit of spice to a social interaction. You want to find out. It's really convenient if it's the other. You've got to think about this over the long run. You're going to be interacting with this person minute by minute basis for decades. If you're the idiot and that's causing trouble, then you should find out. So you want to say, well, look, this is what I saw. What's your explanation of what's going on? And then they'll offer you their viewpoint and hopefully they'll do the same thing. They'll think, well, this is my intent. And maybe they have to go think about it, but this is my intent and this is what I saw. And I think you're being oversensitive. You peel back the explanations layer by layer until you both agree on what happened. And more importantly, on what you're going to do about it in the future. And that's really hard. And especially if there is something going on that's not straight, that will require quite a bit of digging. It'll probably result in anger and tears and a fight. That's very unpleasant. It's easier in the short term to avoid that. Hopefully, the consequence of that is you don't have to have that fight again. Pay attention to your own uncomfortable negative emotions in order to manage that and not pretend that everything's all right or that you're nicer than you are or that you're less jealous than you are.